Patri Banerjee, core faculty for the College of Health Sciences and Public Policy at Walden University. And what I'm trying to do in this segment is to go in and talk about different countries in Africa. And I probably hit upon one of the most difficult regions in in the continent of Africa, where many nations are involved, and that's some a place named Rwanda. So some of these places have been going through conflict for about 30 years, and it's important to kind of take a look and see what is going on. So this was actually last year that it was published, but um, here it's some of the statistics about Congo and Rwanda. So I can't talk about Rwanda before until I talk about what happened in Congo. Um, and Democratic Republic of Congo. By that's what I mean. But some of the historical snapshot, just thinking about what Rwanda is called. It's called the land of a thousand hills, and this is a very small mountainous country with a complex history. European ruled the 1994 genocide and rapid post-genocide reconstruction. One of the reasons that Rwanda and Democratic Democratic Republic of Congo are at war is because of the minerals. Eastern Eastern Congo is full of minerals, natural resources that the United States was laying claims to, and then they sold those claims to China, and so the even the UN peacekeepers take sides and don't consider the interests of the people in Rwanda. So I'm going to talk more about the war that took place and more about that. But let's focus on some of the good that Rwanda has. It's located in the East Central Africa, just south of the equator. Some of the borders are Uganda, where some of the is a country that I had focused on previously. So Uganda, Tanzania, Burundi, and obviously Congo are the bordering countries. So what's the not natural resources, but some of um, the fauna and flora. So the mountains, savannas, bamboo forests, and even a volcano chain that's important. And there's a significant chain of mountain gorillas living there, so you get to see it. So, again, as I said, 14 million, that's it, 14 million people live in Rwanda. Um, the Hutu were the majority, and then Tutsi minority, and then Twa is small minority. So one of and you can't talk about Rwanda until you talk about the genocide between Hutus and Tutsis. So Hutu, in the genocide, there were millions of people that died in a matter of a month. This was the most dangerous ethnic cleansing. So killed moderate Hutus and then the Tutsis in Rwanda, and that's kind of where the famous movie Rwanda comes from, where they're talking about the blood diamonds that are in the eastern portion of Congo. Um, so there's a multi-party system. Paul Kagame, who came into power in 2000, um, leading the RPF to end the genocide. So he was kind of um, he was kind of not a bad leader, but a dictator. So Rwanda has a stable and economically ambitious, but also authoritarian with limited political opposition. So if you go back into the history, and this becomes so complicated, I can't really fit all of that in one um, video. But there's a lot of in the history. There's a lot of history too. Um, so in the late 19th century and early 20th century, um, there was the Germans took over in East Africa, and then there was the Belgian Rwanda. Um, so these were all foreign actors that were into that were involved in many of the different fights. Um, and so this was centralized Tutsi-led kingdom, and that's why there was a lot of anger and tension between the two countries, between the two ethnic groups. 1962, following a Hutu-led revolution, ended the monarchy, and then genocide against the Tutsis in 1994 that killed 1 million people in 100 days. And then post 1994 reconstruction, reconciliation, and major economic upheaval. So I just wanted to take a look at some of these maps that are here, and some of these areas where UN peacekeeper deployment, and of course, a lot of them are involved in a lot of the natural resources. Here's another picture of UN peacekeepers that are not necessarily peacekeepers. And then here's some of the um, Red Cross and civilian protection burying dozens of bodies in Goma. So this is tragic to see the woman crying in there. Um, so the presence of foreign armed groups, especially from Rwanda, and tensions between Shisekedi and Rwandan President Paul Kagame. There's tensions between the two. Peace talks between the two countries broke down last December, and negotiation between the two leaders were canceled. Then came March 23rd's January offensive into Goma. I'm talking about M23. That's mainly Tutsi, and then so they're conflicted all over the region. So the M23 came in and offended in an offensive into Goma. So the M23 are mainly ethnic Tutsi. So again, they go into places and then they fight. Um, it's impossible to overstate the memory of the 1994 genocide in explaining the thinking of Rwandan officials. So the Hutu militias who perpetrated the genocide fled to refugee camps in eastern Congo shortly after, and Kigali sees the current iteration of these groups as existential threats. So after watching recent mediation efforts between the DRC and Rwanda fall through, what do you think a DRC Rwanda peace deal would take shape as? So this in this article, they're asking questions and whatnot. Here's humanitarian aid groups trying to give humanitarian, um, trying to give them some of the comfort and money and whatnot. Um, so let's go get into the past here, and this is where formal, this is where former governments are taking over all across the world. Let me read this, and then I can conclude this presentation. So they said, let's get into that past outside intervention a little bit more. You wrote a book, the Lumumba plot, telling the story of Belgium's and the CIA's role in the DRC post independence crisis. What's the effect of that past US and European intervention on the country's strength today? So, the most important thing that happened after independence was the CIA's installation of Mobutu Sese Seko and the continued propping up of him throughout the Cold War. Um, the government was not popularly legitimate, so Mobutu Sese Seko did not have an authentic source of support. His government was not dependent on providing services to the Congolese people. For its continued existence and power, it was paid for by the United States. That tilted Congo off of its natural political axis and led to decades of misrule in the Congo Wars. So, as you can see, the CIA all of a sudden shows up and installs Mobutu Sese Seko, and that causes power vacuum and creates a lot of different things. So the reason I'm going into Congo, DRC, is because you can't talk about Rwanda until you understand Congo. And here's a lot of the Congolese that have been fleeing the city of Goma in droves. 2 million people have been living before conflict broke out in 2025. Okay, so I've talked about some of these pictures are interesting. DRC, here's the mining, here's the mines that are very expensive for other people. 10,000 miners extract a ton of day of coltan. It's DRC is the world's largest source of coltan. So I'm not going to go over that, but some of the one of the Africans, Rwanda is one of the Africa's fastest growing economies in the 21st century. So there's agriculture, tourism, services. So the Hutu and the Tutsi and the Twa, so kingdom, colonization, genocide, and reconstruction. So multi-party republic after under Kagame, Paul Kagame, and the capital of DRC and Rwanda. The capital of Rwanda is Kigali. So I think that summarizes everything I talked about the 100-day campaign of mass genocide in Rwanda. And so basically, the genocide started when President Habyarimana created a power vacuum and panic. Hutu extremist leadership killed Tutsis and moderate Hutus um, and seized control. Propaganda media, especially radio, television, RTLM, urged civilians to kill Tutsis, calling them cockroaches. Another thing that happened was rape was used as a weapon. 250,000 to 500,000 women got assaulted. And militias were using machetes, clubs, and crude weapons to start their killing. And victims were murdered in homes, churches, schools, fields, and roads. Um, so these sites became, the many Tutsis fled to churches and public buildings for refuge. So there's a lot of different Tutsis that were killed, and the Hutu that were moderate Hutus that were killed. So millions of people, over 1 million people died from this. Um, the UN could not do much. Obviously, you can't go against US influence in that place. All right, so that concludes everything. I hope this has made some sense. Thank you for listening.